Okay. So I'm delighted today to be joined by Professor Ganesh Devy ji. He's a professor, eminent professor, and educated at Shivaji University, Kolhapur, and the University of Leeds, UK. Among your many academic achievements, sir, you have also been a fellow at the Leeds University, Yale, and have been also the THB Simmons Fellow in 91, 92, and the Jawaharlal Nehru Fellow during 95, 94, 96. You were a professor of language at the MS University, Maharaja Sayaji Rao University, Baroda, and from 1980 to 1996. Which were kind of my formative years going to schools and university. So it's real honor to be talking to you. In 96, you gave up academic career in order to initiate work with the denotified nomadic tribes and at Adivasis. During this work, you created Bhasha Research Center at Vadodara, which is what attracted me to speak to you as someone interested in languages. And Publication Center, the Adivasi Academy at Tejgarh, and Denotified Nomadic Tribes Rights Action Group, and several other initiatives. And one fascinating thing, I think, is a unique and probably profound contribution to the linguistic and cultural heritage of India. You initiated the largest ever survey of languages in history, carried out with the help of nearly 3,000 volunteers and published 50 multilingual volumes coming out of that research. You have written several books. Your first book, one of the English books written in English, After Amnesia in 1992, got you Sahitya Akademi Award. And you have won several other awards, Padma Shri, Sahitya Akademi Award, SAARC Writers Foundation Award, and Prince Claus Award, and many, many other literary accomplishments to your credit, sir. It is my absolute honor and privilege to talk to you as not only an enthusiastic linguistic person interested in language, but also as an intellectual interested in generally history and culture, although my substantive academic role is in economics, but I dabble into out of my intellectual curiosities. So, sir, coming to you, if you could briefly tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your inspirations, any early life influences, whether it was book or events that prompted you to go deep into the language and culture and society.
Thank you so much. I feel very pleased being with you this morning. It's an honor for me to be speaking to you, particularly because you've been dedicated in working for Sindhi language and culture, which really need much greater attention. They both deserve that. I was born in a small village in Maharashtra. My parents were not particularly educated. I mean, they had attended school for a few years, but not beyond that. And I studied in Marathi medium school. My parents spoke Gujarati at home, so I had the benefit of a second language. When I reached the fifth standard, I realized that there is another language called Hindi, which I started picking up because by then we had acquired a radio set and the Vivid Bharati programs facilitated.
Okay.
And also in my village, a small camping theater had come, a tent theater, Tambu theater, where films like Mother India were being screened at that time. So Hindi entered my life. Then in my high school, I started learning English alphabets, ABCD. By the 11th standard, which used to be the matriculation year in those days, I was proficient in slowly reading a paragraph or two paragraphs of simple English text, but not able to speak any English.
Yeah.
As a student of science, I went to Pune to do my college and found that all of the lectures were in English and all other students were either Parsis or Christians, and I was not able to follow the lectures. So I dropped out. I became a laborer.
I
I went
see.
to Goa.
Goa.
Goa. I decided that I was only 15-year-old. I had finished my school at 14.
Okay.
And I decided that if education is only in English, it is not for me. So I must find another track in life. But where I was in Goa for about 8 or 10 months, after having dropped out of Wadia College in Pune, uh, I there was a very small library,
Okay.
and there I came across a novel by Pearl S. Buck called The
Okay.
Good Earth,
Okay. Good earth.
and
Yeah.
I tried to read it with the help of a dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
I could follow it. I also found another book by R.K. Narayan called The Guide,
Guide.
and I could read. And once I realized that I can read English books with the help of a dictionary, I can understand. I decided that I will devote time in reading more. So I accepted slowly to increase my reading speed and to take it to 300 pages a day.
Wow.
I was 17 by then, and I also realized that I had a liking for literature going through those books. So I joined another college a year later, completed my BA, then an MA, then my doctorate. But I felt that I had not had enough good education. So I decided to go to England to do an MA in English.
Okay.
I continued my reading habit to the age of 42. And when my first book in English got the Sahitya Akademi Award, I stopped that and then decided to unlearn all that I had read
Very
and
interesting.
get the lexical world into oral world, working with tribes and denotified tribes.
Mm-hmm.
That's my personal story. But as far as the linguistic survey is concerned,
Yeah.
in 1961, I had seen in the college library the census data,
Okay.
and in 1970s I saw it again. This 71 data, language data, came out in the year 77, 76 or 77. That's when I was about to complete my PhD.
Okay.
Now, the gap between the two was very vast. 1961 data said that there are 1652 languages. 1971 data said there are only 109 languages in the country.
So we had
The
lost 1,500 languages in 10 years.
10 years. I mean, in the government data,
Yeah.
not on the ground.
Yeah. Recorded
But
data.
when I looked at the last item in that list of the 70s census, it read all others. So that was very. I got interested in all others. Which
Okay.
are those other languages? Where are they? And this had happened soon after the Bangladesh war, so I
Yeah.
was aware government was shy of showing too many languages
Okay.
because Bangladesh had separated on the language question.
Language grounds. Yeah.
So the rest of my life is spent in finding out who are those people who speak those other languages.
Okay.
Some 10, 15 years back, the government of India had, 20 years back, government of India had plans of carrying out a survey of languages.
Yeah.
But that idea did not materialize. It fell through because two ministries were vying for the credit. In India, language is a subject for home ministry.
Right.
It's also subject for education ministry.
Okay.
So because these two ministries could not collaborate properly, it fell through. And so I thought, with the help of people I had met and known, communities I had worked with, I could carry out a language survey. And so I did it with the help of people, a large number of people and experts, because I was a university prof and had fellowships and so on. I had also links with academic world.
Yeah.
So I brought two together, and that worked. That
Yeah.
worked.
So bringing together your academic credentials and then general population, the volunteers, you created this workforce of 3,000 strong. It's a very large group to manage. As a researcher, I can just imagine the organizational and logistics of that must have been massive. But the mission behind was so fascinating. So what did this survey tell you? Some interesting things you found?
Well, about five things that I learned out of the survey, the most important points. One is the languages of the coastal communities are lost or almost lost.
I see.
And I noticed that the reason was not linguistic,
Mm-hmm.
it was not historical, but it was the policy of the government to lease out the coastal rights to corporates. So the small fishing communities were devastated.
I see.
They had lost the rights to go and do coastal fishing. Only deep sea fishing was, I mean, sea farming as they call it now,
Yeah.
was allowed. And all those who were dependent on fishing as a profession, like those who make nets, those who make boats, those who sell fish, carry the goods,
Yeah.
carriers and so on, they had moved inland. In Gujarat, there was a very large community called Kharwa community
Mm-hmm.
to get together annually for deciding on life partners for the young ones. Nearly 4 or 5 lakh people used to get together
Yeah.
at one time. But now they don't do it. They are scattered. I mean, what has happened to the Sindhis in
Yeah.
India or Jews in Europe,
Europe. Yeah.
that happened to the Kharwas.
Yeah.
So it's sad. This is only one instance, but there are nearly 150 such communities on the long sea coast of India. Their languages are in very difficult days. The second thing I found out was India has about 8 or 9 sign languages, which are Indian sign languages.
I see. I didn't know this at all. I
Yes, and
see.
I brought out a special volume in the linguistic survey called
Okay.
the Sign Languages of India.
Okay.
Uh, and they are being carried forward intergenerationally by the signing communities themselves without much assistance from schools.
So they don't have a script or anything. They just use a sign to communicate.
Yes. Signers do write other languages,
Ah.
but when they write down French or English or Hindi or Gujarati, it is a second language for them. For a sign language user, the sign language is the mother tongue, and all of the languages that they write or read, I mean, in educational institutions, they are given text to read, imagining that they are mother tongue text, but they are actually second language text for them.
Okay.
And so their mental transactions are of a different nature.
Yeah.
But based on these two findings, I noticed that language decline is directly related to a decline in employment opportunities within one's own language zones.
Okay.
And migration, not lack of schooling, lack of grammar books, lack of dictionaries, libraries, that's not the primary reason for language decline, but it is migration. Migration affects languages like nothing else.
Yeah. Now, whether it's
Okay.
economic migration or political migration, but anything that displaces people from their land causes this.
You will notice, sir, that when the UNESCO brought out the first atlas of endangered languages,
Yeah.
migration statistics issued by United Nations agencies shows a dramatic increase, right? And the last one I saw was 2017 or 18. and that was saying that 36% of world population has become migrant
Yes.
for employment purpose, for livelihood,
Yes.
which means literally languages of those people back home are endangered.
Endangered. Yeah. Yeah. Now, this climate change might trigger even further migration, what they call the climate refugees, which would further endanger languages, wouldn't it?
It will, I mean, that it will affect, it will doubly affect languages. One, because it will induce migration. The second, because wherever there is biological diversity,
Yeah.
there is a linguistic diversity.
Yes.
And as soon as biological diversity is found depleting, linguistic diversity also becomes fragile.
Yes.
And I mean, the reason is when languages emerge in the world some 70,000 years ago, the uh, the process was that if enough number of members of a species, I mean humans, about 8 to 900, they tend to stay together, a new language emerge. So
Right.
this is it is called a language knot, KNOT knot, language
Okay.
knot.
Yeah.
Language knot produces a language, and the moment you unravel that language population knot, the language starts going down.
Okay.
Uh, the languages which are steady are the ones which had received the benefit of printing.
Yes.
But those without printing uh, have to face this risk.
Distinction
Uh,
is extinction. Yeah.
Quite ironically,
Yeah.
writing is not a language. For a language, in order to be a language, there does not have to be a script for that language. I mean, the
Yeah.
English language does not have a script of its own even
Oh,
today.
too. Yeah.
We created the committee to translate the Bible, the King's Bible, King James's version of the Bible.
Yeah.
They never set up a committee to create an English script. They're very
Yes.
pragmatic. They know that a script does not make a language a language. It is the grammar that makes language a language.
Yeah. So that was the second learning from the survey. First was the migration caused coastal communities lost languages because of migration.
Third was, I said, I mean several, but third was, if you're asking me to go on.
Yeah, please carry on. Yeah, let's talk. And then because there is a couple of other areas I want to explore. One, you mentioned about the mother tongue learning and the cognitive development in one of your lectures that I want to talk a little bit more. But please complete those 2-3 points that you want to make. Yeah.
The denial of full citizenship rights to some communities,
Okay.
such as notified and nomadic tribes,
Mm.
which were at one time it was the end of the 19th century, turned into criminal tribes. They were branded as criminal tribes
Wow.
in 1871. I mean, Charas is one example. There are 191 such communities in the country.
I see.
Their total is over 10 crores today
Wow.
nationally. So they tend to, because they are seen as potential suspects, even when they want to lead a normal life,
Yeah.
uh, they tend to not speak their language in the presence of a third person.
I see.
And many of those languages are now becoming code languages or secret languages. India has today the greatest profusion of secret languages in the world,
I see.
like Ramoshis, Berats, Yanadis, Yerakulas, Hakkipikis. I mean, uh, more than 100 communities are now dependent for their internal social communication, for their cultural integration on a secret language. And the extreme case of this was found in a community called Gondelis. Gondelis, their code language has moved away from words, and it is only carried out through signs now. which is a different visual sign language.
Right. Right.
Bengalis are Dubhashis who can through their signs
Yeah.
translate the language of the world into any other language. It's a fascinating case where I mean, we don't have enough time, but another time I'll tell you. Uh, if you whisper French in the ears of a Gondeli, that fellow communicating French to the other fellow standing at 100 feet distance in
Wow.
French. Second fellow can produce all those sentences. It's quite a phenomenon. I mean,
Yeah, it is. Yes. It is
the
sad, Professor, isn't it, that so the third reason you are identifying is the social stigma attached to some languages, because mainstream, if we call them mainstream speakers or languages of a region, would attach negative connotation to the community just because they speak in that different language, which then it kind of stops them from expressing in their own language the normal course of action.
the fourth was that the government of India does not have any reliable data on languages that exist in India.
Yeah.
Census itself is ridden with faulty methodology because they try to first ask people about their mother tongues, then they elicit known names of mother tongues from the list received. Out of these known names of mother tongue, they try to press together, they make a compact set of languages and decide to call them a single language.
Right.
Uh,
There's kind of
it's a,
a standardizing and homogenizing.
Yes, I mean, Bhojpuri was claimed by 5 crore and about 5 lakh people in 2011 census. It was clubbed together with Hindi. So, despite 5 crores claiming Bhojpuri as their language, they are shown in the government data as Hindi speakers. And all the planning for those people is for the Hindi language and not for their own language.
Right.
There are, I mean, but going to Sindhi, I have noticed that Sindhi has now started throwing up good language movements.
Yes.
And there is a greater, I mean, my friend Rita Kothari,
Yes. I know Rita. Yeah.
moved from English studies to study of Sindhi culture and language.
Yeah.
Chandan's name I mentioned, and
Yeah.
the uh, there is some nominal patronage to the language. Sahitya Akademi gives an award,
Yes.
but that is not enough, and it does not cut. It does not go any deep. Really,
no. No.
have been closing down.
Yes.
There is compulsion on writing Sindhi in Devanagari.
Yes.
While Sindhi is written in two different ways, two different scripts.
Yeah.
And, so Sindhi is a language which should have received a linguistic state in India, but has not. At least a linguistic union territory for Sindhi would have been a great idea, but it has not. Whereas Mizo, Khasi and Gora received Meghalaya. But Sindhi has remained a kind of a homeless language in India, and yet Sindhi is showing a remarkable kind of resurgence in recent years.
Yeah. So we have 8 minutes or so, I think, to close, but we will again catch up on there's some other fascinating stuff, Professor. Very briefly, I was listening to your speech at the Bangalore International Center, where you talk about when language dies, and two aspects, because talk is fascinating, very deep and profound. I think we need to get together again to talk about that, because that's something very close to my kind of area of interest in the consciousness. But you start by saying that the language is kind of a bridge between whatever universal phenomenon is there and consciousness, and it connects and makes it possible for us to experience whatever is out there in the universe. Can you say a little more for the audience, please, on that?
Well, thank you for asking that. Science is one way of describing the reality of space and time surrounding us. We all know that we're born in space, we're also born in time. Now, but science still does not have the ultimate answer for what is the ultimate spread of the space or the ultimate end of time or beginning of time.
Yeah.
Since we have created a narrative, which it is the most authentic narrative that we have.
Yeah.
But the universe is a narrative that we have created. As far as and it can change in future. It can change. There is a big debate between creationists and evolutionists.
Yes.
I am on the side of the evolutionary theory, but there is a strong argument coming from the creationist, intelligent design, and so on. So the picture of the universe that we understand may change. It is certainly different from the picture of the universe that elephants build, or birds have, or the fish have, or reptiles have.
Yeah.
It is one of the narratives of the universe. But on the other hand, this narrative can be internalized or articulated because of our consciousness. And each one of us believe that we are individual, indivisible,
Yes.
to go to the etymology of that English term.
Yeah.
But given how thickly we are surrounded by the state, by surveillance, by laws, by parampara, tradition, inheritance, one doesn't know if one is an entire self or is an illusion of being a self.
Yeah.
Therefore, your chitta, your consciousness of being yourself, and is an imagined one. I'm not saying it is imaginary.
Yeah.
But it has to be constructed for oneself with some identity tags, some history, some belonging, some knowledge. And the world outside is also uncertain. But one thing which connects the consciousness with the world is our ability to name things.
Yeah.
We name mountain stars,
Yeah.
giving those names and talking about those things by using these tokens that we use, word tokens. So language enables us to construct the picture of the outside world and the picture of ourselves and connect the two. And therefore, I say language is a bridge between the consciousness and the phenomenal world.
Yeah. And yeah, please complete the sentence.
Language as a system is accessible to us is a certainty because the brain gives evidence for having developed the capability of handling language. And that's the proof of our being able to use language.
Yes.
And therefore, being able to relate to the outside world.
Yes. I think I want to end by that quote you make in that speech. World is there because word is there.
Indeed.
And I think we'll end on this note, sir, but I think what you had done is kind of increase my appetite to talk to you a lot more. And with your permission, in future, we should continue this dialogue to reflect on several aspects of the fantastic and phenomenal work that you had done through your research on language, but it also shows how from that just linguistic survey, you go into the deeper aspects of culture and what affects the civilization. You use the word India is a linguistic civilization, which is a topic on its own for a detailed conversation. I hope to have that with you in near future, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll be visiting England to talk about a book on Indian past from the times humans settled there till now.
Yes, and you're
maybe
coming here, I believe, in October. I look forward to meeting you then and continue our conversations.
thank you so much. Thank you for hosting me.